Somewhere in the farm country of western Minnesota, a single cone of glacial gravel rises above everything around it. From the top, on a clear day, you can see a circle of countryside 20 miles across, scattered with dozens of lakes. One of the most famous writers America ever produced climbed this hill and scolded the whole state for not knowing it existed. It is called Inspiration Peak, and the walk to the summit takes only minutes. This evening, we are going up. We are in Otter Tail County, in west-central Minnesota, roughly 22 miles northwest of the town of Alexandria. This is Lake Country, a rolling landscape of farms, pastures, and water in every direction. The hill we are climbing stands near the tiny communities of Urbank and Clitheroe, far from any city. Inspiration Peak is protected as a state wayside, a small public site maintained by the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. It is one of the smallest units in the state park system, and one of the most rewarding for the effort it asks. The trail here is short, paved, and honest about what it wants from you. It climbs steeply from the picnic grounds, gaining close to 200 feet in well under half a mile. The State Park Service describes it as a short but strenuous walk, and that is exactly right. There is no switchback mercy here, just a steady grade through the trees. Our whole route this evening, up and back, will cover barely half a mile of ground. Inspiration Peak is the crown of a range most people have never heard of, the Leaf Hills, sometimes called the Leaf Mountains. They are a belt of steep, tumbled hills running through this part of Minnesota, and they hold some of the highest ground in the western half of the state. The summit ahead of us stands about 1,727 feet above sea level. That makes it the second highest point in all of Otter Tail County. In a landscape this flat, 300 feet of sudden elevation changes everything you can see. The grade makes itself felt almost immediately. Oaks close over the path, and the evening light comes through in patches. It is late July, just past 5 in the afternoon, and the woods are warm and full of insect sound. The pavement is a kindness, but it does nothing to soften the slope. Short as it is, this climb earns the view at the top. To understand this hill, you have to go back more than 10,000 years, to the end of the last ice age. Great lobes of glacial ice pushed down across Minnesota, and two of them, the Wadena Lobe and the Des Moines Lobe, shaped this very ground. Where the ice stalled and wasted away, it dumped enormous loads of sand, gravel, and boulders along its margins. Those dumps became the Alexandria Moraine, the belt of high, rough land we are standing on. The Leaf Hills are the wreckage of a dying ice sheet, frozen chaos turned into scenery. Up we go through oak forest that covers the lower flanks of the hill. These slopes sit on deep glacial gravel, well drained and dry, the kind of ground oaks handle better than most trees. The woods here have an open, park-like feel in places, closer to savanna than deep forest. Every step of elevation buys a little more light through the branches. Somewhere above us, the trees give way entirely. Geologists have a specific name for a hill like this one. It is a kame, a cone of sand and gravel built inside a rotting glacier. As the stagnant ice melted, streams of meltwater poured down through holes and crevasses, carrying sediment with them and piling it up in mounds. When the last of the ice finally vanished, the mound was left standing alone above the land. Inspiration Peak is one of the finest kames in Minnesota. The hill is, in a very real sense, the ghost of a hole in a glacier. Near the top, the forest lets go and the sky takes over. The upper reaches of the peak are open grassland, and the transition is sudden enough to feel like walking through a doorway. Wind replaces the stillness of the woods. The path keeps climbing, but now the land is already falling away on every side. This is the moment the hill starts to explain itself. The crown of Inspiration Peak carries true prairie plants. In spring, pasqua flowers bloom up here, and by late summer the slopes hold blazing star, asters, and goldenrod. It is a small island of native grassland riding on top of a gravel hill, dry and sun-struck while the shaded slopes below stay in forest. Prairie like this once rolled westward from here in an almost unbroken sea. On this summit, a piece of it survives above the farm fields. The last stretch is the steepest, and then all at once there is nowhere higher to go. The summit is a rounded, grassy dome with the whole of west-central Minnesota arranged around it. Catching your breath here feels appropriate, even ceremonial. Below, the picnic area and parking lot have shrunk to toy size. Above, there is nothing but July sky. This hill stands almost exactly on one of the great boundaries of North America. To the east lay the deciduous forest, oaks and maples and basswood stretching toward the Mississippi. To the west lay the tallgrass prairie, running toward the Dakotas and the Great Plains. Inspiration Peak sits on the seam, forest on its sheltered slopes, prairie on its dry crown. Standing here, you are standing on the line where two continental ecosystems negotiated their border. And there it is, the reason this hill has a name like Inspiration. Farmland quilts the lowlands in green and gold, pastures roll away to the horizon, and lakes lie scattered across all of it like spilled silver. On a clear day, the view reaches roughly 20 miles in every direction. The evening sun is starting to lean west, and the water catches it lake by lake. No photograph from ground level ever quite prepares you for this. The most famous admirer of this view was Sinclair Lewis, born in 1885 in Sauk Center, a small Minnesota town not far to the southeast. Lewis became one of the sharpest observers of American small-town life ever to hold a pen. His novel Main Street, published in 1920, made him a household name and made his hometown briefly notorious. In 1930, he became the first American ever awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. And this hill, of all places, moved him to one of his most affectionate lines about his home state. Writing in the late 1920s, Lewis urged Minnesotans to climb this peak and see what he had seen. From the top, he wrote, "There is a glorious 20-mile circle of some 50 lakes scattered among fields and pastures, like sequins fallen on an old paisley shawl. 50 lakes, one view." He chided his fellow citizens for chasing scenery in distant states while ignoring this hill in their own backyard. A century later, the sequins are still down there, still catching the light. Try counting the water from up here and you quickly lose track. Every fold of the land seems to hold a lake, a pond, or a slough shining through the trees. The glaciers that built this hill also gouged and dammed the country below it, leaving basins beyond counting. Some are ringed with cabins, others sit alone among the fields. This is what the ice left behind when it finally surrendered. The county spread out below us takes its water seriously. Otter Tail County claims 1,048 lakes and boasts that this is more than any other county in the United States. The county takes its name from Otter Tail Lake to the north, one of the largest in the region. Resorts, farms, and small towns have grown up around this water over a century and a half. From the summit of Inspiration Peak, you can survey more of it in one glance than from anywhere else in the county. The summit invites lingering. A worn path loops across the grassy crown, and every few steps the view recomposes itself. To the west, the land smooths out toward the old prairie. To the east, the hills of the moraine pile up, wooded and shadowed. The wind up here is constant company, combing through the dry grass. The name of these hills is older than any road below us. The Ojibwe people knew this range by a name that early chroniclers translated as the Rustling Leaf Mountains, and the English name Leaf Hills descends from it. It is a name you can verify with your own ears, standing under the summit oaks when the wind moves through. The sound of these hills was written into their name long before they were surveyed. It remains one of the most fitting place names in Minnesota. A hill like this changes the sky above it as well as the land around it. Sun-warmed slopes send columns of rising air off the summit, and soaring birds know it. Hawks work the updrafts along the moraine, circling with barely a wing beat, and turkey vultures tilt along the ridgelines. On a summer evening, you may watch them ride past at eye level, something flatland Minnesota rarely offers. For a few minutes, the tallest thing around is not a tower or a silo, but you. The light is turning golden now, the way late July evenings do out here. Shadows stretch long off the moraine hills, and the lakes to the west have gone from silver to brass. Haymarks and field lines stand out in relief that midday flattens away. It is easy to see why generations of travelers have timed this climb for evening. The hill saves its best hour for last. The farm country below carries a curious settlement story. Clitheroe, the small town northwest of the peak, began in 1865 as one of the first permanent settlements in Otter Tail County, founded by a small breakaway Latter-day Saint group known as the Cuddlerites. German and Polish Catholic farm families later put down roots around Urbank, and Scandinavian homesteads spread through the lake country. They broke the prairie edge into fields and raised barns among the kettles and kames. The checkerboard of farms in this view is their work, 5 and 6 generations on. From up here you can read the compromise between the plow and the glacier. The level ground between the hills is cultivated, neat and productive. The steep morainic knobs, too rough to farm, keep their woods and pastures. That is why this remains such a textbook place to see glacial landscape. The terrain itself refused to be smoothed out. Farming shaped this view, but the ice wrote the rules. Sinclair Lewis knew towns like the ones below us from the inside. Sauk Center, his birthplace, became the model for Gopher Prairie, the fictional town of Main Street, and his portrait of its gossip and its ambition scandalized and delighted the country. The town that once bristled at the book now celebrates its author, with Lewis landmarks along its actual Main Street. His restlessness took him around the world, but his praise for this region kept circling back. The view from this hill was part of the Minnesota he defended. Inspiration Peak occupies an unusual rung in the state park system. It is a state wayside, a small protected site meant for a stop of an hour or two rather than a weekend. There is a parking area, a picnic ground among the trees, and the summit trail, and that is the whole inventory. The site is looked after by the staff of Lake Carlos State Park, some miles to the southeast. No campground, no visitor center, just the hill and the view it was set aside to protect. We take one more slow turn around the crown before starting down. The sun is low enough now that the western lakes are pools of glare, and the eastern hills have gone soft and blue. Swallows are hunting the evening insects over the slope. The temperature is finally easing after a hot July day. It is the kind of moment that explains why a hill gets a name like this one. This peak is the high point of a whole region Minnesotans call the Glacial Lakes Country. It runs down through Alexandria and its chain of lakes, a landscape of moraines, kettles, and clear water that draws vacationers every summer. Scenic byways thread the hills, and resorts have operated on these lakes for more than a century. Most travelers experience the region from shore level, one lake at a time. The summit of Inspiration Peak is the one place where the whole glacial masterpiece is laid out at once. Going down is quicker and hard on the knees in a different way. The pavement drops back into the oaks and the great view closes behind us limb by limb. What took real effort to climb takes only minutes to descend. The woods are dimmer now, holding the first real shade of evening. The picnic ground waits below, right where we left it. This climb changes its character with the calendar. In autumn, the oak slopes turn russet and gold, and the view becomes a quilt of fall color running to the horizon, which makes September and October the busiest season on the hill. In spring, pasqua flowers open on the summit prairie almost before the snow is gone. Winter buries the trail and leaves the Kame white and silent above the frozen lakes. Every season, the 20-mile circle is still down there, wearing different clothes. Here is a fact the postcards leave out. Inspiration Peak is not quite the highest ground in this range. A slightly taller hill stands on private land a few miles to the northeast, off limits and unnamed on most maps. That makes this summit the highest point in the region that the public can actually climb. The tallest hill keeps its privacy, and Inspiration Peak keeps the visitors, which seems like a fair arrangement. The grade eases, the pavement levels, and the short pilgrimage is complete. Barely half a mile of walking, and yet the evening feels much larger than that. Few places in Minnesota hand over this much landscape for 15 minutes of effort. Sinclair Lewis thought every Minnesotan owed this hill a visit, and it is hard to argue with him from down here. The car can wait another minute while the light fades on the slope. A gravel cone left by a dying glacier, a prairie crown above the oaks, and 50 lakes scattered like sequins in the evening light. Inspiration Peak asks for one steep quarter-mile and pays it back with 20 miles in every direction. If your travels ever cross west-central Minnesota, give this Wayside the hour it deserves. Some views need a mountain range, and some just need the right hill. Thank you for watching. Follow for more of the trails of the world.